Australian Touring Car Championship is proudly brought to you by Shell and Dunlop, the world's best road-holding tyre.
Just a lucky 1-2 at Sandown for Nissan? Or is the high-tech twin-turbo four-wheel drive supercar actually bulletproof? That's the question on the lips of some very nervous team managers after the GTR's awesome display a fortnight ago. Today, 7 Sport greets you from Symmons Plains, Tasmania, for what could be another chapter of That's My Car, and by how far. Dickie Johnson will attempt to correct the imbalance in his 100th start for Ford. Holden hotshots Brock and Percy are here, and so too are the B&H Bimmer boys, Longhurst and Jones. We've got 2 hours of power-packed motor racing ahead, with production cars, Formula Fords, overseas news, and of course the big one, round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Good afternoon, Australia. I'm Mike Raymond. Welcome to Symmons Plains and round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Well, the weatherman has delivered a bonus here today for spectators. Gone are yesterday's showers, and we have a fine and mild afternoon with a top temperature of 21 degrees. Well, the Symmons Plains circuit is located 30 k's south of Launceston. It measures 2.41 kilometres and is very fast, but also very hard on brakes. Well, Australian champion Jim Richards has pole for today's event. But not everything has come up roses for Team Nissan overnight. And with the latest on that, we say good afternoon to Neil Crompton.
Yes, Mike, a difficult time for at least one of the Nissans yesterday. Mark Scaife speared off at the end of the back straight, leapt into the mud, there were bits flying everywhere. What happened?
Mate, all I did is I turned into the big fast right-hander down the back straight, and the left-hand front disc brake rotor exploded. Cut the wheel in half, sent the tyre flat and speared off down through the paddock, so it's a pretty wild ride.
The boys had to do a lot of hard work last night. How did it shape up?
They've done a fantastic job. They worked till 4 o'clock this morning, and the car went as quick this morning as I did the day before on the same tyre, so the car's great.
It's easy for us to stand back in the light of the day and say, oh, there's got a bit of damage on the front panel work and what have you, but how much work's involved in something like that? What did you have to replace?
Mate, it's a huge job, actually. It's all the things you don't think where the time's involved, and the left-hand front corner completely was replaced, plus radiators and oil coolers and all the things under the car that's been tortured.
Well, we'll look forward to a big performance off the back of the grid. So, Mike, we've got a Nissan at the front, a Nissan at the back. Tell us about the meat in the sandwich.
Sure will, Neil. As you said, Jimmy Richards on pole position with a 58.00. Off position number 2, the front row, Win Percy in the Holden Racing Commodore. From position number 3, it's car number 30, Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. From 4.17, Dick Johnson in the Shell Sierra. From position number 5.8, it's Colin Bond in the Caltech Sierra. From position number 6.05, Peter Brock, the Mobil 1 Commodore. From 7, it's car number 18, John Bow in the second Shell Sierra. From position number 8.11, Larry Perkins, the second of the Commodores. From 9.28, Kevin Waldock. And rounding out the top 10, 25, Tony Longhurst, the Benson and Hedges BMW. That's to come a little later this afternoon, but after the break, we'll have some good old Ford versus Holden warfare in round 2 of the Australian Production Car Championship. Don't go away. Back here at Symmons Plains International Raceway, we await the start of round 2 of the Australian Production Car Championship. Very strong field here today. Let's have a look at them. Jim Zarafos has pole with a 109.59 in the Falcon. Good weekend for the Fords. Mal Rose sits on the outside of the front row, 109.86. Mark Larkham in the Falcon from position number 3. Tony Scott, the first of the Commodores, from position number 4. Ken Douglas in the Falcon starts out of position 5. From 6, it's Kent Yulden. From position number 7, Paul Fordham. From 8, of course, it's Peter Fitzgerald. From 9, Ian Palmer. And rounding out the 10, it's Gary Rogers in the Valvoline Commodore. Racing, getting them off the line. Actually, it was Mal Rose who won the jump. He's got a long run up to the first turn, a good-looking field. Rose hugging to the inside here, and they're all trying to cross. That is the line for the first turn at the hairpin, and here they come. Huge crowd here today at Symmons Plains International Raceway. The production cars to get the action started.
Tony Scott up on the outside in the Bridgestone Holden. And the field rips through that left-hander cleanly. So we've got 2 Falcons and a Holden. Terrific start from Mal Rose. Jim Zarafos back to second, Tony Scott in the Bridgestone Commodore in third place, Mark Larkham dropping back just a little bit in fourth place, and Tony Scott having a peep on the inside here of Zarafos. Cast your mind back a couple of weeks to the opening round of the Australian Production Car Championship at Sandown, and what a fabulous race, Mark Osler.
Fantastic race, that one at Sandown. Mal Rose managed to pull off a win there, and he's pretty much repeating that form here. Very quick in qualifying, and he was on pole position up until the last few seconds of qualifying when Jim Zarafos knocked him off, but the Falcons are looking very strong at Symmons Plains.
Don't discount Tony Scott. Remember that he was the mover in the pack at Sandown, and as the race unfolded seemed to get stronger and stronger, so they had their brake and tyre combination just right in the Commodore. We take race cam, and this is Tony Scott's car, number 6, the Commodore, the only Commodore to be really flying the flag at the moment amongst what is a bunch of very competitive Falcons, and this is Jim Zarafos that he's closing on. The hairpin left-hander at the end of the main straight, very, very tight, and then they run up this long back section with a gentle right-hand curve.
It's been a fantastic start to the season for Gary Scott with the new Commodore. One of the regulars at the front of this pack, Peter Fitzgerald, still having trouble sorting out his new Holden. But Gary Scott with his team, George Shepherd and car owner Ross Williams, they've really got this car sorted, and it's very, very competitive.
Ken Yulden also getting up in touch with them as they come down the Coca-Cola turn. Sharp left-hander. So Mal Rose doing it all so well at the moment.
There goes Mark Larkham, locking up, turning into the corner. He's gathered it up, but he'll be very disappointed about that. Mark's thoroughly enjoying this production car racing, but he's lost it a bit, lost a lot of places there, so he's got a lot of work to do. Head down to the straight. Mal Rose in first position. Jim Zarafos and Gary Scott very close. Interesting to see what Zarafos and Scott will do today. There was a bit of biff and barge and petty of paint swapping at Sandown, so it'll be interesting to see what these two get up to today.
Car number 7 there is Ian Palmer in the Holden Commodore. Car number 3, Peter Fitzgerald. Peter Fitzgerald a long way off the pace.
Noisy little critters. They're up in that turn. It still continues here as we pick up the car sweeping down. Down to Coca-Cola corner again.
It's Peter Fitzgerald in the Goodyear number 3 Commodore. Fitzy's a bit mystified as to why he's off the pace. They've done a lot of development work. They've dynoed the engine. He's got some new tyres coming along in a few weeks' time. And for someone like Fitzy to be mystified as to why he's that far back on the grid is a bit of a worry for him. And they've got to do a lot of work to find out why this car isn't as quick as Tony Scott's. It's as simple as that. 7th in the field at the moment, Peter Fitzgerald, car number 3. This is the battle for the championship too. Mal Rose on 20 points and Jim Zarafos on 15 after finishing second last weekend, so it's going to be on here.
Late braking duel here. Watch for him to swing back on the inside. Probably try and get the line. Sits in behind Mal Rose now in the 44 Ford. But he couldn't get much closer. Actually, he's probably closer there than he was the previous lap.
You couldn't get much closer than that. He's tapped right onto the bumper of Mal Rose. He's going to have a look down the outside as they come up to Coca-Cola corner. And he hasn't been able to make any impression there.
And these two cars are getting away just a little bit from Tony Scott. It's not too far off. In fact, Scott has his hands full at the moment trying to nail down third, as you'll see. He's picked a couple up behind him. Zarafos comes lurching back once again at Mal Rose. Got a little off the island that time. He just can't get across to the right side of the racetrack. He really needs to be on the other side as they come up to the hairpin.
And Scotty has Ken Douglas and Ken Yulden in the 2 Fords tapped onto the back of him. There's 2 separate battles here. Zarafos has a look down the outside, jam on the brakes, but Mal Rose has him covered. This is the place to be when you come to this hairpin.
No, but he's been working away at the exit to that turn, but Rose's car seems pretty good, both in horsepower, and it seems to stop fairly well as they came through the hairpin that time. Nothing really between these two, and that other dice developing back for third.
They're very evenly matched, and it was a fantastic qualifying duel between those 2 lead Falcons, so there's nothing between them, and there's no forecasting who's going to win this race at this stage.
No, you would think it's either Rose or Jim Zarafos.
Ken Douglas getting very close to the back of Tony Scott now, and that scrap for third really starting to develop. And tucked in there is Kent Youlden as well, the reigning national champion.
Here they come beneath the Dunlop Bridge, heading up to the hairpin.
Now Scott's really coming under pressure in the background there, those two Falcons. We might see Ken Douglas have a go down the outside here. And Youlden goes wide, leaves his braking really late. And a little tap in the back for Tony Scott. And it looks like Youlden made some contact there too, a few bits of brake lights flying everywhere. But now they come onto the straight. Scott's still in front, but Douglas looks like he got a better run out of the corner. And it's going to be a drag race.
Yes, this is good stuff for third.
Look at Youlden tapping onto the back of Douglas too.
He's going to try and do the split, is he?
Well, they've both gone past.
Get a free toe that time.
Left Scott in their wake, and there they are.
Good race cam picks. Tony Scott's Commodore. Hasn't been the best of day though for the Commodore so far.
Tony looks like he's struggling a little bit here. He's been slipping back from the leading pair. These two latched onto him, and now they've cleaned him up fairly easily. So the Falcons would seem to have quite an advantage, judging by this.
Lap 10 of 15, round 2 of the Australian Production Car Championship from Symmons Plains. As Tony Scott tried to regain that spot.
Yeah, Scotty's a great competitor. He won't give up without a fight. He's already taken one place back.
Number 15.
It's Don Watson, Falcon.
So he gets going again, out of harm's way.
And this great battle still continues. Youlden comes back at Scott. And this is where they both got him last time. The Falcons seem to have some sort of an acceleration advantage out of that corner. And certainly when they get up in the top rev range, they seem to be developing a little bit more horsepower. So, yeah, Youlden's done it again. Gives Scotty a little wave. And Scott will try and hang on to him here and nail him under brakes.
I don't know if he's got enough top end power to be able to get in touch with him. Through Coca-Cola.
Whoops.
That helps.
Don't mind a bit of the scenery. But Youlden's holding that position now.
It's very, very dry here at Symmons Plains. You can actually run off the circuit. Probably continue all the way to the airport without hitting anything. Here's the leaders.
Big challenge on here. Zarefos the long way round, then starts to try and close up on Rose, but still couldn't make it. This is a terrific scrap.
By the time they wind up the pace coming down to the sweeper. It just seems to take forever, doesn't it, from that corner down to this corner.
It does in a production car.
Yep.
Well, Jim Zarefos running out of options here. He's tried to take Melrose a number of occasions to different parts of the circuit. But that black car, number 44, still in front. And they've opened up a huge gap on third place Kenny Douglas there. So this is the battle for the lead in both this race and the championship.
Well, he's made a good start to the championship, Melrose. I think Sydney driver who did a spot of touring car racing, production cars, went and spent, I think it was about 18 months, 2 years running with Oscars, and now a good ride for, good ride and a bit of a helping hand too from Jim Zarefos in the production car race this year. I think Jim's becoming just a touch frustrated.
Gave Mel a little serve coming into the corner. His brakes may be getting a bit hot too, because as I say, you get involved in a braking duel in these cars and it doesn't take long before the pads go a little bit jelly. But he's having a look every which way, outside, inside, hanging on to him as they come down to the brakes to Coca-Cola corner. But it looks like Rose has got him covered, yeah.
I think he's trying to coax Mel into a spot of defensive driving, and Mel doesn't need to do that at this stage.
Mel's covering his line fairly effectively, and it does look like Jim's getting a little bit desperate now.
The laps are running out. He must get it a little unsteady over that hump as they come down to the left-hander. Back up to challenge, should get the last lap forward this time through.
Now this will be interesting as I come down to the hairpin this time. This will be no holds barred, I'd imagine.
Bit of traffic to deal with as well. See the scrap still going on for third there. Those two Falcons side by side. That's Ken Douglas.
Oh, look
Ken
at this.
Oh!
There's no way he's going to turn straight up the escape road. He'll be at Hobart in 35 minutes.
Plenty of smoke there. A few tyres locked up for a number of seconds, but Jim's blown it effectively.
Oh, yes.
Gets back onto the circuit.
He's probably only dropped a spot, has he?
I'm not sure if Youlden may have slipped through there. We'll see on the wider shot in a moment.
I don't think the stewards can levy a $2,000 fine on Rose for reversing up on Jim. So he'll come up with a win here this afternoon.
Scrap for second, still flat out here at the moment. We've got Zerafos back in fourth place now. And look at this scrap here. Side by side, every which way. Kent Youlden, Ken Douglas. Youlden with the upper hand at the moment, car number 1, the national champion. Kenny Douglas in the red, white and blue car. Now big gap back to Jim Zerafos, who speared off the end of the straight.
And checkered flag time, no doubt about it. Jim Zerafos just couldn't make it today. The win going to Mal Rose in the Falcon. Very exciting race. Bad luck indeed for Zerafos to run off the circuit in the final run to the hairpin, but let's check them out for you on our race score. Mal Rose the winner, Kent Youlden finishes second, Ken Douglas a deserving third, Roland Hill fourth, and after that brush in the last lap, Jim Zerafos regains to finish fifth.
Constants in motor racing, nothing stays the same for very long. Over Christmas, we were reminded why you never say never in this game. Just when Holden fans thought Peter Brock was lost to Ford forever, he's joined operations with Larry Perkins to form a two-pronged Holden attack. Here's how it came together.
Here he comes. Don't say this wasn't orchestrated. A 1-2 for the dealer team. Peter Brock in 05 comes across the line to win the 1984 James Hardy 1000.
The 1984 James Hardy 1000 was perhaps their finest moment. Peter Brock and Larry Perkins pooled their talents to record a third straight Bathurst victory and a team 1-2. The combination of the dedicated engineer ex-Formula One pilot and the commercially sharp driver cum PR man was close to unbeatable. Now in 1991, 7 years after each went his own way, Holden fans' two favourite boys are back on the same side. So how did these two guys come to be back in the same pit garage? Early in the 1985 season, Larry left the Mobil team to pursue his own engineering and racing operation. Despite a lack of funding, the name Perkins stayed at the front of touring car fields, and as a result, the business flourished. Meanwhile, Brock continued with Holden products until the end of '87 before shifting to BMW in 1988, then Ford Sierras in 1989-90. Technical assistance for the Sierras came from Englishman Andy Rouse, but for 1991, Rouse is off to Toyota. Faced with spiralling costs to run two of the tricky turbos, but with a budget for only one and diminished engineering input, Brock needed a solution, and quickly. At the same time, Perkins had the best of facilities and could easily drive a dollar further with the local Holden product, but had no sponsor. It became obvious each would be best served by the other's presence.
When driving a Holden is something I know a fair bit about. I've spent 18 years here with Holden, and getting back into it, of course, is old home week. So it's feeling very good. Larry, of course, is a meticulous guy. His attention to detail is fantastic, and he takes that concern away that you can have as a driver, and it allows me to just get on with the job. So I'm looking forward to a very competitive year.
For 3 years I was with Peter in 82, 83, 84. We did everything we could. We won Bathurst 3 times, we won Sandown, we had first and second. We had the best of everything. We were well financed, we were well organised, and I see not the slightest doubt why we can't carry even on from there. There's no way Peter's driving's altered, my own driving hasn't altered, the machinery certainly got better. We're just bigger, brighter and better, and I'm just really excited about it. I think it's tops.
In late December, they signed a deal, and by February the 14th, testing began on the first car at Sydney's fabulous new track, Eastern Creek. In the space of just 6 weeks, the theory of Brock being back in a Holden was reality, and Perkins now had the budget to chase the big guns. The slippery, lighter and faster VN Group A will hoist Holden's competitive fortunes in the sprint races, and having Brock back in a Holden will certainly meet with approval amongst the brand's loyal supporters. And what of Peter's impressions 3 and a bit years down the track?
Fantastic. It looks great, sounds good, very much on the pace, and I think that it's very early days, but I think that it's absolutely on the money and will give things a real shake in 1991.
The new team's Sandown debut didn't exactly run in accordance with the script. A major handling imbalance prevented both cars from running to expectation. Additional homework in the workshop and recent track testing has boosted the hopes of Brock Perkins fans for a stronger showing in today's battle on the Apple Isle.
Neil Crompton there looking at the marriage of convenience between the almost perfect Peter and Larry Perkins for season 91. Well, there's no doubt Jim Richards and Mark Skaife hogged the spotlight during round 1 of this year's championship at Sandown a fortnight ago. Make no mistake, the knockers have been hard at work since Sandown, pontificating about this year's Shell Series being a one-team, two-horse race. The same people, mind you, saw it differently when Jim did the same thing in the opening round of the 90 Series at Amaroo Park.
Edging across the line, Bow gets away smartly. Jones lights up the tyre there, side by side, heading up the hill, and a mighty start from Richards up the outside of the pair of them, catching the 2 Sierra drivers unaware. And Richards may well take the lead as they go over Bitchapave, and here he is trying to fight back to get the inside. Fantastic start from Jimmy Richards.
Richards was off the mark faster than Yasser Arafat at a tea-towel discount sale. Jim opened a handy break over the pack of Sierras, while officers from the New South Wales Pollution Control Commission thought the whole thing was a bit too noisy for human consumption. Amaroo has never been easy on tyres, but those who went soft before the start were showing more canvas at half-time than the National Gallery.
Oh, the Bowie's clamped the tail onto the guardrail. Now, has he done any damage to the left rear? That's the break that Richo needed.
That was the closest Bow got to Richards during the race. JB finally settling for second, while team leader Johnson took third. Game, set and match, though, to Richo.
Racing, Brock off a good one this time. Longhurst buried it on the starting line, and Johnson grabs a gear. And Johnson up now on the inside is really going to make life interesting for Tony Longhurst when they head down to the first corner. Brilliant start by John Bow. And just look at Alan Jones muscling his way into the action. Also a good start there from Jimmy Richards.
The second round at Symmons Plains brought some joy for Brock fans when their hero bolted into the blue after a sensational start. Brock led Longhurst and Johnson in the opening laps, while AJ pitted for fresh rubber after cooking his faster than Margaret Fulton. Horsepower reigns at the Plains, and Jim was doing it tough against the Sierras, though he was resigned to playing the waiting game.
Did you get off to a good start? I saw Seaton take some ground off you.
Yes, a few of them did, but I'm just slowly working away at them, not trying too hard too early. Long way to go yet.
Brock's tyres were all but gone when Johnson arrived to make life even more miserable for him. Johnson ultimately claimed the lead from Peter Perfect, while Bow took third after a race-long duel with Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra.
Away they go. Seaton blasts them off the line, and Bow goes with him on the outside. Johnson slips into third as they sweep down for the run now. Alan Jones getting away to a great start on the outside, but it's Glenn Seaton and the Peter Jackson Sierra making a brilliant start from John Bow. Next is Dick Johnson. Phillip Island was the new venue for round 3 of the series. Longhurst got away to a brilliant start, but young Glenn Seaton charged to the front just as Brocky and the boys got into some heavy metal manoeuvres in the middle of the pack. Young Tony was on the move. He zipped inside Johnson and then claimed Seaton. Longhurst, Johnson and Bow was the order till Jonesy decided to shuffle the pack. Oh, there's
Jones
Jonesy.
John Bow. Now, that was a costly exercise. Oh. Now I know why they're going to bring Peter Brock into the pits. He's got one of our camera cables on the back. Now, he always wanted to be a TV star.
The closing stages produced some interesting moments. Jim's Nissan nobbled Jones for third, while Murray Carter set off a bushfire alert after feeling the heat through his feet. Johnson and Bow, meanwhile, were on their way to a stunning 1-2 over the Richards Nissan, though Winton would be a different story.
They're off. Jones actually gets the best of it, but Richards catches the next one, gets through smartly on the lead, and then Mark Skaife making a brilliant start out of the second row. Just look at them fight for racing room as they go into the first turn.
Winton Raceway may have more twists than a Stephen King novel, but Tiny Town always produces one of the closest contests of the year. The fourth round of the series was just that. Richards and Jones swapping the lead lap after lap. Scaife joined them for a slice of the action, only to have the welcome mat withdrawn in his face. The traffic congestion was something else as Richards tried to thread his way through the slower traffic. Johnson was in more strife than a Baghdad dictator at the Tel Aviv Hilton.
What is the definition of Winton?
Winton. It's like running a marathon round your clothesline.
Richards was still sprinting at the finish. He opened up the gap over Longhurst, Jones and Seaton, with Johnson a distant fifth.
Hang on, Australia, we're about to go racing. Off the line, Johnson away quickly, Bowers away even faster on the inside. The 2B and 8 Sierras have been shuffled out by the Shell Sierras as they head down to the carousel, the right-hander for the first time.
It was enough to make an old promoter proud. Spectators hanging off the rafters and 3 Queenslanders tipped to fill the trifecta in round 5. Johnson and Jones led the qualifying order till Dickie Boy punched the Shell Sierra into the lead soon after the start, with Bow a comfortable second. Nobody was taking much notice of Colin Bond as he zipped onto the tail of Larry Perkins and began to pull in the pack. After that, the script went a little haywire. AJ vented the Ford Sierra and suddenly pit lane was busier than a State Bank auditor in John Bannon land. To the absolute horror of his fans, Johnson had a rear off, which left hard-charging Colin Bond up front, and that's where he stayed to beat Brocky and win Percy in the run to the flag.
Racing, Brock misses the start. The Nissan gets up behind the pair of them, has to go for another gear. Longhurst tries to carry on the outside, but it'll be Brock to the first turn.
The annual Galar at Malala marked the competition debut of Nismo's new twin-turbo four-wheel gizmo. Brocky led the parade after another brilliant start, but young Scaife in the Nissan was a sight to behold. Bondi was also in the thick of it, passing the Shell duo of Johnson and Bow, while up front the almost perfect Peter had his hands full, fighting off the inevitable.
Watch horsepower now as young Scaife guns the Nissan down the inside. We'll have to try and outbrake him.
The mobile team's luck went from bad to worse soon after when Andy Madecki turret tested the second two-door. Neil Crompton was looking good, clearing the field and charging past Longhurst. The excitement continued as a rear hub failure took care of the new Nissan. That put Brock back in front, but not for long. Before you could pose the question, what was an urbanite like Bond doing in a rustic setting like this? The Sydney sider was home in a canter over Johnson, Richards and the luckless Brock.
Green light on. Brock wins the charge and Jim Richards out like helter-skelter down the outside. A bad start from Longhurst. Jones got the best of that.
The Wanneroo shootout in the Wild Wild West saw Brocky at his best, winning the start over Richards in the Nissan GTR, with Longhurst and Seaton snapping at their heels. AJ copped a 1-minute penalty for jumping the start, so his race was virtually run. Longhurst moved to second, and then young Seaton breezed past Richards, while Johnson did the same a lap later. The Queenslander then suffered a high-speed suspension failure, which dunked him in the dunes. Brock, meantime, increased his advantage to cruise home a clear winner over Seaton, Bond and Richards, setting up a sensational grand final at Oran Park.
Ready for the start. Richards head-to-head against Brock. Richards wins the start. Absolutely flies off the line.
The scenario was simple. Richards had to win this race to take the title. He couldn't afford to trail the Queenslander to the wire. And while many people thought the new Nissan GTR might have been a little underdone for the occasion, Jim simply streeted them. Brocky moved to second early in the race, while Johnson headed to the pits with tyre woes. The B&H team had double troubles. Longhurst had a moment on the approach to the bridge. Soon after, the Jones Sierra was KO'd by engine problems. It just seemed like everyone was having one of those days.
My drink bottle had an enema inside the car, and it created fumes because I used some gunk in the bottle that nearly blinded me. Then Brock got past me, would you believe? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that thing of his, like, I nearly choked to death on Mobile 1. It looks like the last train to Ferny Grove.
Best slam dunk of the Arvo was perpetrated on John Bow by Colin Bond. But at the finish, it was Richards over Brock and George Fury, giving the Australian Championship crown to Gentleman Jim over Peter Brock, Dick Johnson and Colin Bond. Back here at Symmons Plains Raceway, we're preparing for round 2 of the Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe Series. Crackerjack Phil, Andrew Gubb, pole position 104.27. Sharing the front row, John Blanchard. Then from 3, it's Paul Morris and Troy Dunstan from 4. Michael Gagan starts out of 5. From 6, Brett Peters, 7th, Ron Searle. From 8, David Radcliffe, Cameron McConville, and Don Griffith round out the 10 as we await the start of what promises to be a very interesting Formula Ford contest. Andrew Gubb on pole position.
The field jumps away, and John Blanchard makes an excellent start on the outside, and now starts to crib across, takes some ground away from Gubb as they all rush down to the hairpin left-hander. We had a fabulous race at Sandown. Let's hope today's is just as good. Up on the outside, looks like we could have Dunstan making a big challenge there. The field gets through cleanly and heads off up the back straight for the first time. Formula Ford racing at Sandown, as I said before, Mark, was just fantastic. And even looking at the qualifying from yesterday, I'd say we're in for more of the same.
Sensational racing at Sandown. These guys just give everything. 10 tenths, super close in qualifying. A great duel yesterday, right up to the last second, when Andrew Gubb managed to knock Dunstan off pole. But look at this. First corner, 5 locked together, Sandown all over again.
And it's car number 6 in control at the moment, Speed Tech Racing and Troy Dunstan.
I think it's Paul Morris, number 3. They swing down into the main straight. There's Brett Peters, number 8 in the Swift. So as they come past the start-finish line, 5 of them locked together in this high-speed train down to the first corner.
Dunstan, I think, will lead them down to the hairpin. Gee, it is close. Skips out of there nicely. John Blanchard running in second on the exit to the hairpin. And now they make their way down to the right hand, a little right-hand kink that we call the sweeper here at Symmons Plains.
There's 4 different types of chassis running here today. The blue car at the front, the Speed Tech car, is a Van Diemen, and behind him the Swift. All these chassis are built in England, and there's a great scrap going on here between the manufacturers, for sure.
John Blanchard getting just a little bit closer to Troy Dunstan as they exit Coca-Cola corner. And they run round the back part of the course. Close over the little hump here, left-hander. Reeling off one more. And Dunstan doing it nicely under the bridge. Good Morris trying to duck down the inside. Can't do it as Dunstan leads them once again. Blanchard in second, Gubb is third. Then Morris out of the hairpin, down through the sweeper.
That lap, I think all 5 actually closed up rather than stretching apart. It's rapidly becoming a 5-way scrap for the lead more than a run for individual places. That's Brett Peters at the back of the pack. 5th, but probably only a split second off the lead.
Big puff of smoke there. I think more than 1 or 2 tyres got locked up there.
Could have been Blanchard because he lost a bit of ground on the leader, and that allowed Andrew Gubb to have a real lash at him. He certainly had everything on fire down there. So Dunstan enjoys a little bit bigger gap at the end of that lap. Then Blanchard, then Gubb, then Morris and Peters. Incidentally, the Formula Ford Australia Series director Tony Armstrong's had a spell in hospital, and he's watching our telecast this afternoon, so our best wishes from the team at 7 Sport. Don't worry, Tony, everything's under control down here. Well, sort of. But your boys are putting on a good show.
They certainly are. Coming down through the sweeper again, and as you can see, Troy Dunstan has opened that gap up. Is Andrew Gubb this time on the outside of John Blanchard.
And just behind them, Peters is having another run at Paul Morris, but he hasn't been able to pull it off. Keep an eye on Peters as they come toward the last laps. This is the same position he was in at Sandown when he made that huge, desperate overtaking manoeuvre on the last lap, which was pretty spectacular stuff.
Blanchard almost locking one up again on the exit to that turn. They go beneath the Dunlop Bridge. Pressure just a little off the shoulders this time of Troy Dunstan. That brake lock up by Blanchard, Neil mentioned, has certainly opened it up for Dunstan. Gubb was thinking about poking the nose down beneath John Blanchard. Just couldn't do it, and they've managed to now open up, actually.
I'm a bit mystified, but the electronic printout of the lap scoring shows that Troy Dunstan's actually last in this field, so either the computer's glitched or he's got a 1-minute penalty for jumping the start, and that's a possibility. And we'll try and get a confirmation on that for you, but the computer shows John Blanchard our leader. But they'll argue about that later. For the moment, we'll deal with what we can see, and that shows that Troy Dunstan is in control from Blanchard, Andrew Gubb in third, then Morris, and then Peters.
Into the left-hander again, and beneath the Dunlop Bridge. Isn't amazing at Sandown, both the production cars and Formula Ford were nip and tuck all day long. Come across to a circuit that's slightly smaller, and you'd think the cars would be closer, whereas in fact we haven't seen that same sort of dicing.
So Brett Peters still hanging on to the tail of Paul Morris. He'll help the back straight once more. Dunstan's got a nice break here. He comes up to lap a slower car, running in some nice clean air. He's not carving up with other cars and using his tyres up. So he's just keeping it nice and straight out front, letting these other guys sort out the minor positions.
So Andrew Gubb has really been working hard at the tail of Blanchard for the last couple of laps, trying to set him up for a pass. Come over the little rise here. Now if you can just stay in touch with him beneath the bridge and probably move across to the left on the run to the hairpin, you might be able to produce something. But there's no way Blanchard is going to get offline here. By the time you make a run, that's very brave stuff.
Neck and neck. Squeeze for room, but no. And inside line's pretty reliable coming out of that corner, and Brett Peters now has moved up into 4th place, so he's moved Paul Morris back 1 position. So these 3 in the Speed Tech sandwich at the moment.
We've had the confirmation that Dunstan does have a 60-second penalty. I assume that's for creeping at the start. Whoops, and one of them loses a bit of nose cone. That's Blanchard. So the nose box has been bent up, and he lost the fiberglass section. So he's had a touch with Brett Peters. I think it might have been up in that top left-hander. So it's all happening.
Yeah, Brett's really on a charge now. Look at this. He's tacked onto the back of Gubb. He's really got to move on.
So the man in the foreground apparently was a bit eager at the start. That's cost him 60 seconds. And this is the scrap for the lead. Andrew Gubb in control at the moment from Brett Peters. John Blanchard with a bent nose.
And Paul Morris behind
him. At least his car. And Paul Morris behind him.
Well, Dunstan's doing this quite easily at the moment. He's holding this gap.
Look at Blanchard still having a go here.
Probably where he's sitting, he probably didn't. Would he be able to see his nose cone there, anything there?
Oh, I'm sure he can see it sort of sticking up above the silhouette line of the nose of the car.
Oh, there's been a touch. Paul Morris has gone off.
He's gone out into Scaife territory out there.
Just touched wheels with Blanchard as they turned into the corner. He was the loser in that little...
Farmer Scaife went out there and did some paddock ploughing yesterday in the GDR when things were a little wet. And we've still got the action going up the front of the field with Brett Peters smoking the bags. Last lap board being shown there.
Well, I still think the information we had with Dunstan, although despite the scoring, was still being credited with the lead, so goodness knows. On the racetrack, all we can do is show exactly how it is. That's Dunstan, and of course we go back to Andrew Gubb, Brett Peters and John Blanchard, Paul Morris. That's the order as they come down the back straight. And Blanchard still chasing Peters.
The good thing about these cars, in a sense, is that because they don't have wings on them, they're not as affected when you bend a nose cone as the conventional winged open wheeler, so it probably hasn't affected John too much, although he got the short shift that time up the top of the course. So this is Dunstan car number 6. Checkered flag coming out, and Dunstan's certainly going to cross the line in front of the field. Whether he wins, we just don't know, but Dunstan takes it. Second on the road, Andrew Gubb. Third place behind him was Brett Peters, then John Blanchard and Paul Morris, still coming back from the boonies.
Well, there's no doubt about who actually led it to the checkered flag, whether or not the officials are going to ping him later. Who knows?
Another across the line win for Troy Dunstan.
So, Shell Race Score confirms that Troy Dunstan did indeed take the win in car number 6 from car number 24, Andrew Gubb. Third place, car number 8, Brett Peters. Car 4, position 4, John Blanchard with the bent nose. And car number 3 in 5th place, Paul Morris. The motor racing continues after this break.
Back to Symmons Plains and 7's same-day coverage of the second round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Well, it's certainly an exciting period for motorsport in this country, with the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix only a week away. Formula One, of course, starting this weekend, and the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix at Eastern Creek on April 7. Just the right ingredients for a special Symmons Plains edition of Motor Week. In just 7 days, the sun and fun capital of Australia will play host to the first round of the Kart IndyCar World Series on the streets of Surfers Paradise. Preparations on the Gold Coast continue 24 hours a day. The circuit is complete, retaining walls are in place, so too is the debris fencing and the spectator seating. IndyCar practice commences on Friday, following which Alan Grice and the NASCAR set will blaze into action.
Anything can happen and probably will, but I think the biggest job is going to be to not have an accident yourself, and probably more importantly, keep out of other people's accidents, because there's going to be plenty of them.
Last year's Indy Trail began in April on the Phoenix Mile as Oval Master Rick Mears took pole and then forged to the front of the pack, and that's exactly where he stayed. 2 weeks later on the streets of Long Beach in California, Al Unser Jr. led from the front while teammates Sullivan and Fittipaldi tangled. No stopping Jr. here, he was streets ahead. June 3 saw the cast at Milwaukee, where little Al spun the Valvoline machine while leading. Fortunately, he was able to recover. Michael Andretti led the contest for 111 laps, only to run out of fuel on the very last circuit. 2 out of 3 for Kid Unser. 2 weeks later at Detroit, Michael Andretti had pole. Didier Tays caused a scare when his car caught fire after a pit stop, but escaped uninjured. Young Andretti went on to win, and at Portland he made it 2 in a row, though Al Jr. finished 3rd and took back the points lead. His streak unfortunately ended at Cleveland in July when he tangled with Scott Brayton's spinning car early during the event. Unser led 57 laps and appeared to have it in the bag till fuel ignited during a pit stop and put 4 of his crew in hospital. Danny Sullivan charged into the lead, and that's where he stayed. At the New Jersey Meadowlands, Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal were all over each other for the lead. Michael stayed out of trouble and came up victorious. It's a fallacy Indy drivers don't race in the rain. Check out the conditions here in Toronto. Al Jr. blitzed them, and when they lined up on the Bank 2 miler at Michigan, he was hot to make it back-to-back wins, and that's exactly what he did. For the first race through the streets of Colorado, Teo Fabi's Porsche paced the pack. For a spell, he claimed he was unhappy with his tyres. Then he had more rubber than he could handle. Despite a smoking engine, Al completed the hat trick. Vancouver was the next stop on the PPG trail. Bobby Rahal was very much the man to beat here, but he ran out of fuel. Al didn't, and that made it 4 in a row for young Unser. Mid-Ohio hosted the next round with Michael Andretti on pole. He led early till sliding into the sand, but came back to hold out his dad Mario for a very spectacular win. At Elkhart Lake in Wisconsin, Sullivan and Mears shared the front line. Disaster struck though when AJ Foyt pole vaulted over a fence after losing his brakes. When the race resumed, young Andretti ran away from the field to score a great win and close up the points lead. At Nazareth, Pennsylvania, Rahal took pole in record time. Miz, though, took the lead. At the halfway mark, Ari Lyondike launched himself into Little Al and slammed him into the wall. Fittipaldi went on to take the checker, and when they reached the grand final at Laguna Seca, Danny Sullivan had a point to prove. Al settled into second, effectively locking up the Kart IndyCar crown, while the battle for the minors was something else.
Ari Lyondike still battling with Cheever as they come to the line.
Oh, look at Cheever get sideways under acceleration, tries the inside, tries the outside.
and still trying them as they come through too. They come down with slower traffic, line just ahead, and Cheever locks the brakes into the corner, comes wide in the corner, and Lyondike has a position, and there is the checkered flag for Danny Sullivan, and Sullivan from green to checkered leads it all the way at Laguna Seca.
At Rockingham last Sunday, the Good Wrench 400 brought out the fans in droves despite the chilly conditions. All eyes were on Kyle Petty in the mellow yellow machine, the car made famous by Tom Cruise in the movie Days of Thunder. He won pole and then distanced himself from the pack in the opening laps. There were few yellow flags. His daddy Richard brought out the first in this turn one tail swapper when he and another driver tagged each other. Rusty Wallace in car 2 took over the lead as Kyle pitted, and that also moved Kenny Schrader to second. Wallace blew an engine late in the race. Petty took Schrader and led the final 10 circuits to pick up a paycheck for $111,000.
We didn't show much at Richmond. That was a bad place for us. But we knew we could come back here, and then this would be the start of things for us. And, you know, hopefully it'll turn things around for us. Last year it carried us for a long time, so hopefully it'll carry us into a few more victories this year.
Closer to home, the annual Dunlop Olympic Media Awards dinner was conducted at Melbourne's Regent Hotel this week. Phil Scott, the editor of Wheels magazine, was a popular winner of Journalist of the Year. The electronic media was also recognised with Best Motor Racing Telecast of 1990 being awarded to the 7 Network for the Tooheys 1000. Finally, if you've ever been frightened by the driver of a removalist van, interstate hauler, or any Freightline Freddy in fact, you should have been at Oran Park Raceway last Sunday. Every little groover in a prime mover was there strutting his stuff on the racetrack, and there were some harrowing moments, like this guy who cleaned up the tyres, then attacked the wall. Every which way was loose, though it was all in good fun. You can call this sort of thing fun. After the break, the motor racing continues at Symmons Plains.
Symmons Plains International Raceway. Cars warming up now prior to the start of the second round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Here's how the top 10 lines up today. Jim Richards in the Nissan GTR pole position and starting alongside Wyn Percy in the Holden Racing Commodore. From 3, it's 30, Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. 4, 17, Dick Johnson, the Shell Sierra. From 5, Colin Bond in the Caltech Sierra. Out of position number 605, Peter Brock in the Mobile Commodore. From 7, it's 18, John Bow in the second Shell car. From position 8, number 11, Larry Perkins, the second of the Mobile Commodores. From 9, 28, Kevin Waldock, and rounding out the 10, Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges BMW M3. There's Jimmy Richards with Wyn Percy in the new VN Holden Commodore alongside. And starting position number 13, dead last in the field today, Mark Scaife, who came to grief yesterday. Not too far away from the start. Field just about set for round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Series from Symmons Plains in Tasmania. Watch the Nissan, it gets off. Wyn Percy tries to go with it on the inside. And also a great start from Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra as they come beneath the Dunlop Bridge. And Richards away very smartly indeed. And I think it was Dick Johnson who got the best start of them all, and he's right behind the Nissan as they go up into the hairpin. Now it'll be Richards trying to stretch it now down through the sweeper section of the racetrack as they come down here. Dickie Johnson running in second. Wyn Percy back in third. Fourth is Glenn Seaton and then Colin Bond. And it looks like Peter Brock also dropping out of the draft as they come tearing down the back straight here into the left-hander at Coca-Cola corner. And just look at Dick Johnson doing a good job staying in touch with the Nissan.
Tremendous start from Richards, as expected with the four-wheel drive car, but Dick Johnson came from nowhere, blitzed Wyn Percy off the line, who made an initially good jump, but then slowed a little as he tried to get it away. And this is Dunlop Race Cam, the business end of the Ford Sierra, chasing the Nissan GTR, end of one lap. Jim Richards leads from Dick Johnson, Wyn Percy in third position in the HRT Commodore, then Glenn Seaton in fourth, and Johnson up on the outside, challenging the Nissan at the hairpin.
Now he'll try and pull it back on the inside, get the run out of the turn. Richards out of there smartly. Johnson grabs another gear as we take Dunlop Race Cam, working down to the right-hand kink in the sweeper here at Symmons Plains. They're starting to run away just a little from the field. Richards, Johnson, that is the order. Then Wyn Percy under siege from Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Next is John Bow, followed by Colin Bond. Coca-Cola corner. Richards, the pole man in the Nissan GTR. Scaife up to 8th position after starting out of 13. He still has a lot of traffic to pass.
Fantastic start from Jim Richards. Sorry, Neil, but those GTRs just come out like a bullet out of a cannon. They're so quick out of the corners, and you can watch that in the bottom corner. Johnson almost as quick on the straight, but Richard just leaps away on the slow turns.
The interesting thing was in the warm-up this morning that the Shell cars were the real movers and shakers. Both Johnson and Bauer were extraordinarily fast, caught everybody by surprise a little. Yesterday we had miserable wet conditions, today glorious conditions, and obviously the setup on the Johnson car is working to perfection. Cars 16 and 30, positions 3 and 4, Wynne Percy and Glenn Seaton. Then we've got John Bauer. This is the scrap for 3rd, 4th, 5th. Bearing in mind that Mark Scaife's also carving through the pack and he's already lurking up amongst this bunch.
Yes, it won't be too long before we see Mark Scaife in picture. At the moment, we're following this three-way scrap, and there's Mark Scaife in the number 2 Nissan GTR. Running in 6th, keeping in mind he started out of position number 13. Got away to a brilliant start too, but he sits behind John Bauer in the second of the Shell Sierras as they come beneath the Dunlop Bridge and make the run down to the hairpin. Just watch the acceleration of this car.
They call this car Godzilla because it ate each Sierras for breakfast, and it's certainly making it look pretty easy now. He's just nailing Bauer. And watch the speed when they come out of the hairpin. This car is extraordinary.
This is where it puts all its power down to the ground. It is straight. The rest of them are trying to wash off wheel spin. And Scaife has a tweet, and he moves right in behind John Bauer as they come down through the sweeper section. Still a heavy car to stop at the end of the straight. But its acceleration out of the turns is unbelievable, and you've put the wet track down, and the thing is diabolically quick. John Bauer, car number 18, the Shell Sierra, fighting off Mark Scaife, starting dead last in the field and trying to get back on the tail of Jimmy Richards for another Nissan 1-2 at Symmons Plains. Fabulous day here in Tasmania. A huge crowd has turned out this afternoon. The racing is certainly close and spectacular as Scaife looms up, looking for a pass on the outside of John Bauer. Got out of the slipstream. Now watch the exit to the turn here, how Bauer will get out.
Fantastic drive from Wynne Percy, holding down 3rd position at this stage. Wynne did a fantastic job in qualifying, went out when the track was damp, just when there was a dry line there. But look at this, here comes the Nissan on the inside of Bauer. But Bauer's got these Sierras, they've got an enormous amount of straight line speed. Richards has said that all along, and Bauer's proving it here.
Is he going to make a move on the inside? No, Bauer has that covered. Glenn Seaton just sits ahead of him. Wynne Percy, of course, in the number 16 Holden Racing Team VN Commodore. Interesting stuff this, because Scaife is trying to find a way past John Bauer, and Bauer was so incredibly fast here yesterday in the second session. It was really a disappointment to him that he didn't wind up with second quick time yesterday. Beneath the Dunlop Bridge, let's see whether Scaife can pull it this time in sheer acceleration. Bauer just creases the guardrail using the wide exit to that turn. No, he can't. He's caught in behind this Sierra. Oh, Glenn Seaton getting the short back and sides. Bauer spins it.
Looped it. Deary me.
Well, that's taken the pressure off Wynne Percy, who, as Mark pointed out earlier on, has certainly got the bit between his teeth this weekend. Starting off the front row in the Holden Commodore, Bauer is restarted, underway again, a little damage to the front left, and now Scaife has passed Seaton, and Wynne Percy having skipped away just a little bit. Certainly the VN Commodore, in its lighter guise with a little more horsepower and a little more rubber, is a very much more competitive package this year than in 1990 in the VL guise.
Of course, that's been triggered off by John Bauer. Let's have a look again as he comes down the outside. Clips the back of Glenn Seaton. Seaton did a hell of a job here, hanging onto it.
And Mark Scaife can thank Bauer for that, because that really upset Seaton's run on the back straight, and he picked him up quite easily, I'd imagine.
Well, Mark was on the binders here because he wasn't quite sure whether Bauer was going to come across the front of him. He didn't. That jumbled the cards up in the pack, and that certainly has played into the hands of Mark Scaife. The order remains Jimmy Richards, the Nissan GTR, leading from Dick Johnson in the number 17 Shell Sierra. 3rd is Wynne Percy in the Holden Commodore. 4th, Mark Scaife in the second of the GTRs.
Now, Bauer's continuing on his way, and he's coming back through the pack as well. So provided all 4 wheels are pointing in the appropriate directions, he's in 12th position. We may see some fireworks from car number 18. no doubt that his heart rate will be up a bit, so I'm sure that he'll be getting stuck into it.
So will Dix when he sees the replay, but at least the kid was having a go.
Look at Scaife just eating up the ground behind the Percy Commodore.
So the order, Johnson in second place. Richards is the leader. This is the scrap for third. Scaife having a look on the outside. Win Percy in control. The Nissan very good with its power down characteristics here. Closes up a little on the Commodore. Now positions himself to what becomes the inside of the critical left-hander that's coming up. And if he can get in position there, he'll be able to outfox Win. The Commodore brakes are very strong. Percy might hold his ground here. He does. The HRT crew put an enormous amount of time into their working on their brakes on this car. And I know at Bathurst last year it certainly paid dividends when Grice and Percy took the victory. It'd be very hard to outbrake that car in just about anything in the field.
Yeah, Wally Story's done a great job for the Holden Racing team. And in fact, it's Percy. Watch this. Percy, I don't think, is quite prepared at this stage to throw away the placing. He'll hug the inside, make Scaife run down the outside of him and hopefully outbrake him, but I don't think Scaife can. This is a good test, this one.
Now, Scaife's great advantage here is the way the car works out of a corner. So Mark has to be able to elbow Win into a position where he can outfox him. Now, that's not going to be easy. Percy's got an awful lot of experience, and he's fought with many a driver. And just two cars with different characteristics, both working well in different situations, as you can see, Mark.
Just up the front of the field, Mark Scaife's teammate Jim Richards, according to our lap charts, has just broken the lap record. He's just done a 56.84, which cleans up Alan Jones' standing record of 56.96 in the Sierra last year.
Here's Scaife looking once again. Again, the Commodore has the edge into the turn. The Nissan has the edge coming out, but also the real estate is being soaked up by the Commodore, so it's not allowing Mark to get his car into the position he wants. He can't use the road on the exit that he'd like to, so that means he's making a slower exit.
Look at this.
The two of them are very close at the hairpin. Percy's in the box seat. Scaife having to go the hard way round. Can he switch back to the inside? Look at the Nissan, the way it grabs the road. Now he gets into position. If he can hold this when they get down to the other end, it'll be looking good. This is a tremendous scrap.
This must be very heartening for the HRT boys. This Commodore's virtually a brand new car and it's running head-to-head with the Nissan for a few laps. This augurs well for the future.
This is door-to-door stuff too.
Fantastic racing.
There's not much Win can do about it because Scaife has been able to put the right number on him. And what we were saying earlier about the car being able to put its power down out of the turns, you'll never see better evidence of it than that pass on Win Percy. As Neil said, Win was using a little bit of the real estate and then some, driving defensively. So, the order of the race, Jim Richards leading, Dickie Johnson running in second spot, and now the second of the Nissan GTRs up to third with Mark Scaife. Let's look at the restart of the race. We take Johnson's race cam. You'll see that Richards got a flyer. Win Percy lost the kick. Johnson was round the outside and dropping straight into second spot as they came up to the hairpin for the first time. Good start from Jimmy Richards, power to the ground, but also a brilliant start from Dickie Johnson, who won the corresponding round here at Symmons Plains last year.
It's his 100th start in a Ford in the Australian Touring Car Championship. Dick Johnson we're talking about. And he's won here, what, 3 years on the trot on this track.
Yes, it's quite amazing. John Bowie's teammate comes from Devonport. Probably attracts a huge crowd here of Tasmanians to watch him to win a round of the Touring Car Championship, and so far he hasn't been able to do it.
Mark Scaife, car number 2, started from the rear. This is Jim Richards, the race leader, car 1, the reigning national touring car champion, and in control at the moment from Dick Johnson. Jim Richards, the winner of the opening round at Sandown, series leader with 20 points.
Nissan have really got it right with this car. Maybe a four-wheel drive, but the Leyland brothers never had anything like this.
No,
Six-cylinder twin turbo, over 600 brake horsepower, four-wheel drive, 6-speed transmission. The specifications are staggering.
There's Jimmy Richards leading round number 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship as we check out the Shell race score. And there you see it, Jimmy at leaderboard. Dickie Johnson running in second. Mark Scaife is third in the second Nissan GTR. Win Percy in the Commodore runs in fourth. And Glenn Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra rounds out the 5. And we'll be back at Symmons Plains in just a moment. Back at Symmons Plains International Raceway, the battle between 7th and 8th. Running 7th at the moment, Peter Brock, the 05 Mobile Commodore, and the man on the charge after him, of course, is Johnny Bower, who had that moment a few laps ago, connecting with Glenn Seaton and then spinning in front of Mark Scaife. And Bower has been absolutely storming through the pack. They come through the hairpin, Brock out of there. They gain some speed as they work their way down towards the sweeper. And here's Bower now. Is he moving to the outside? Pretty heady stuff this side by side through the sweeper. And Bower making a big run down the outside here. Has he got him? Yes, he has. We take our race cam to see John Bower. Takes Peter Brock. So Bower now advances to 7th in the pack after dropping back to 12th position in the field. Great drive from John Bower. Brock, in the meantime, continues on in the 05 car, and he's got Larry Perkins right behind him, then the first of the Benson and Hedges cars. Is our race leader, Jimmy Richards. Storming down the back straight, has probably opened about a 10-car break over Dick Johnson, a 20 break then back to Mark Scaife. In terms of time, 4 seconds, the split, 4.5 seconds between race leader Jim Richards and Dick Johnson.
The pace now for leader Jim Richards bleeding back to a high 57, whereas in the opening laps he got as low as the 55s, as Mark mentioned before. So Jim is really easing back the pressure now. Johnson's still lapping just a little bit quicker, but Scaife's definitely the mover. He's running down in the high 56s, low 57s as we take race cam. Jim Richards at the very tight hairpin at the end of the main straight. First gear turn. And you hear in the background that Jim's already starting to just short shift the engine and not work the car as hard. He'll be very conscious of the gap back to Mark.
It's the amazing thing about watching Jim Richards on race cam. The guy looks like he's driving along at about 60 k's. There's no unruffled movements. Everything's all nice and smooth and precise. It really is a lesson in high-speed driving.
There's the gap. That's about 4.5 seconds from first to second. There's Johnson, car 17. Gee, it's a good showing from them. They've really dialed a bit more speed in again this weekend.
I think the comments of the Nissan team about Johnson and a few of the other guys were taken very personally when they suggested that the reason that the Nissans ran away at Sandown was the fact that a few of the other drivers had spent the summer break on their boats rather than trying to chase some extra development. I'll tell you what, it's hard to get a word over Dickie Johnson. But Dick, of course, pointed out yesterday in an interview when the wheel fell off Mark Scaife's Nissan that obviously they hadn't done enough work over Christmas as well. We might take race cam with Dickie Johnson running second at the moment. How's it going, pal?
Oh, not too bad, Mike. Not too bad at all.
You're actually a meat in a GTR sandwich at the moment.
It looks as though that's the way it's going to be, doesn't it?
You must be happy got off to a brilliant start.
Yeah, actually, I was surprised that the thing got off the line so well, Mike. It's, because with this new gearbox, it's a little bit difficult to get the car off the line.
Well, I can see Mark Scaife coming up behind you. I think we'll come back and have a talk to you later. Let you get on with some serious stuff.
I don't think it's going to matter, really, is it?
Oh, I don't know. You're going to tell me.
Well, we'll just do our best again, I suppose.
All right, I'll let you go back to racing. We'll check in with you later, Dick. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
There's Mark Scaife. Gee, actually, Dick sounded like it was inevitable anyway. He was trying to follow the pace being set by Jimmy Richards out in front, but Scaife has really been chewing into that 4-second break over Johnson. And not having a lot of cars here today at Symmons Plains, they haven't got too many of the slower vehicles to be able to get an advantage or work to someone else's disadvantage.
The first 4 cars, Richards, Johnson, Scaife and Percy, are all lapping in the 57s, and then the next bunch, 5 to 10, Seaton, Bower, Bond, Brock, are all in the 59s, so there's a massive difference in speed from the first 4 to the next group. 2 mobile cars battling with the Benson and Hedges BMWs. Remember how consistent the little BMs were at Sandown. It was a marvellous performance from both Tony Longhurst and Alan Jones. As we take a look at 7 race cam, and we're riding with Peter Brock. And this is the tight left-hander that brings the drivers past the pit area where their crews are showing them boards, vital information, lap times, gaps to drivers in front and behind, and how many minutes or laps we are into the event and how many to go.
This really is a power circuit, this Symmons Plains, and I was talking to BMW team manager Frank Gardner yesterday, and he's just staggering the difference in times. He's been timing the cars up the back in practice, and the BMWs were about 4 seconds slower than the Nissan down the straight each time, and 1 second in motor racing is an eternity.
Brock at the wheel and working hard at the moment, and finding himself being assaulted by the BMWs again. Peter Brock, a busy afternoon.
Yes, it sure is. I've chosen the wrong chassis setup. It's oversteering very, very dramatically, and I'm having to take it very easy. Feed the power on right where we are now. Now I can put it flat, and unfortunately, the little BM caught me up the hairpin and actually used a bit of road I wanted. Put me into the, just about hit the fence. But I'm suffering from the chassis imbalance at the moment.
Peter, just watching your footwork here, it's very interesting at the end. We can see the heel and toe and a bit of double to clutching down to first. Just explain your way around the circuit for us.
Okay, first gear here, half throttle now. Now I can flatten it. I'm in second gear. I'm going to rev limit to 7/8. Up to fourth now. I use all the road here to save the tyres. And you can see I'll get across the apex here. We're doing about 240 k's per moment. Brakes on now. Back to second now. I'm trying to use everything I can to stop. Well, the brakes are very good, but I'm trying to sort of maintain a bit of brakes towards the end of the race because, boy, it's the hardest race I've seen. Third gear around there. Up to here, brakes on, back to second, just let it float down, keep it straight, cross the apex, and don't oversteer here, which I'm trying very hard not to. And in second gear, third gear up to here, fourth, and a little bit of fifth about now, and then put the brakes on and just hope we've got them all.
Terrific.
It's difficult, this hairpin. Okay.
Thanks, Peter. Carry on. Good to see you short of a word again.
Okay.
He is a wordsmith, isn't he? Peter Brock continuing on trying to chase that BMW, but the second spot is about to be debated between Dickie Johnson and Mark Scaife. Scaife, of course, has made a huge run in the last couple of laps, and here he is closing on Dick Johnson as they come up to the hairpin. Been a tremendous performance from the young Central Coast driver after going off yesterday in what could have been an awful accident. Nissan team are back, they've rebuilt the car, started off the back, here's second place, Scaife working down the outside of Dickie Johnson. The GTR goes through and takes second place away from Dick Johnson, who fights to keep the inside running for the next turn. Can he do it, or will he let the GTR go? No, he'll fight for it probably. Side by side out of this turn, but the Nissan will get the power on much quicker. Came across the front of Dick as well.
There's a good example of the traction this car's got. It's quite phenomenal.
Well, if you think they're fast in the dry, you should see them in the wet. Reeling off one more lap as we take Dunlop race cam from Dick Johnson, who follows Mark Scaife beneath the Dunlop Bridge. And a Nissan 1-2 on the cards here today at Symmons Plains. Jim Richards leading off pole and Mark Scaife off position 13, coming up to take second away from Dickie Johnson.
The GTR's the ultimate webbed footmobile, that's for sure. If it rains, it's definitely the toy to be in. A great performance from Mark Scaife to come from the back of the pack and weed his way through the traffic. It was interesting, Mark, looking at Brock behind the wheel before. I don't think a lot of people realise just how busy a driver is, particularly his feet.
They certainly work hard in these things, and when you take into account the floor temperature, it's a pretty hard day's work.
Here's the man who runs fifth on the road at the moment. Started from position number 3 in today's round, Glenn Seaton, in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Had bad luck at Sandown in the opening round. They blew an engine a few laps into the race. It was parked by the side of the track for the majority of the event. We're working lap number 25, round 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Symmons Plains.
Yeah, Glenn and the Peter Jackson team have been working very hard on developing this car, and it's obviously paying dividends. qualifying at Sandown, he split the Shell cars, and here at Symmons Plains, he beat both of them. So he's been quick in qualifying, and they're putting a lot of work in on engine development, and it's all paying off. It's good.
Kenny Potter from the team said to me last night that I think would win today. And I said, I thought a Nissan won too. And he said, no. He said, oh, the hot rumour around the pits is the Holden's going to win today. I should have had a lazy 50.
Good scrap here with Colin Bond in the Caltex Ford Sierra, being attacked by the BMW. Aren't they fabulous under brakes? Tony Longhurst goes through, and Longhurst doing again to the field what he did at Sandown, and that's just running consistently and picking them off one by one as they start to smoulder.
It's up to 7th now, so that's been a good effort from Tony Longhurst.
Well, Longhurst was saying the other day that even though they're fantastic under brakes, they can't make up the power deficit. But he pulled out something like 50 metres on Bond there.
But the thing that BMW has in its favour is that whatever lap speed it's doing on lap 1, it's still doing on lap 51, whereas most of the leading cars will lose anything in the region of 2, 3, sometimes even 4 seconds a lap as their brakes and tyres start to go south. So the BMW's beauty is in its consistency. And that's why they've been so effective in the 500k races with Ravalia and Pirro at the helm. They just blaze through the pack. They usually consume less in the way of brakes and tyres, and they also consume a lot less fuel. It saves them on stops.
I'm looking forward to our touring car rounds at Winton and Amaroo, which of course the two tight little circuits on the national trail, and I believe the BMWs will be sensational there. Now, they might be able to qualify as strongly as the Sierras, but when they get into about the 30-minute mark of the 50-minute race at 2 of those venues, don't be surprised if you don't have a new player for outright.
Should be interesting. We've got Winton, Malala and Oran Park, all very close to each other, and in the second half of the Shell Series, and that's where you're going to see these BMWs really on the pace.
Larry Perkins we saw then, Kevin Waldock in the Playscape Racing entry. Good performance from Kevin at Sandown, and there's Alan Jones, 1980 World Formula 1 champion, and about to be lapped by, I think, Jim Richards in the background there. Didn't quite catch who it was. Jones getting a little bit sideways that time, coming past the pit area.
He'd love it if Kevin just move off the line and get him a shot there on the inside. But Jim's going to fix all their problems in a moment. As we watch this little dice. Jonesy out on the inside, good move, but he's going to run out of horsepower about 200 metres from here. And the Nissan will probably gobble the pair of them up. Here's Godzilla, as they like to call it in the pits. The monster of the touring car set. The Nissan GTR. The change in paint scheme from last year. A lot of talk about it too, whether or not it's enhanced the car.
I'm going to go against the grain here. I don't mind it. Everybody's been saying, oh, if but maybe, but it's very much like the way Nissan run their cars or ran their cars in Group C sports car racing. They're out of it this year, and also the way they run in the IMSA sports car races in the States.
This is a great indication of this BMW, the might it's got under brakes. It's nailed Waldock right there. Once they get on the straights, something like 200 horsepower deficit will show again. But as they come down to the corners, Jones just really nails him.
Well, he closes up considerably right at the hairpin.
Doing the same thing again.
Jonesy's having a great time here. I think Kevin may have muffed a gear there. But all this will fall apart now because Waldock has got a little more poke in the Sierra than Jonesy can handle in the BMW. So he'll skip away down through this section of the track, and as he gets on the brakes for Coca-Cola corner, watch Alan Jones close up yet again in the little BMW. Here he is back on the tail.
And the magic thing about Alan Jones driving is his tenacity and aggression. He's world famous for the way that he just rips into it, and he will not give up fighting, and he'll give 10/10ths all the way to the checkered flag. Oops, Kevin makes a mistake. That allows Jones to go in, and that's all it takes. One brief front left lock up from the Sierra pilot, and Jones skips through and increases his gap by 3 or 4 car lengths and just takes the pressure off. That was Mark Scaife in the background.
Lap 30 of this second round of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. We're riding with Jimmy Richards with our Nissan race cam. And it looks like another 1-2, Jimmy.
Well, the race is only half over yet, mate, so
I wouldn't start talking too soon.
Oh, you're a pessimist, though.
No, I'm not. I'm a realist.
Well, Mark's done a great job. He's come off the back of the field up into second. That should please Freddie Gibson.
Oh, I'm sure it does. We've had a bad luck during this particular weekend with Mark's car having a failure, and then the boys worked all night to get it back together. So it's been a great effort from all the boys and the crew to get the car looking like brand new again.
Jim, can you afford to give the car a bit of a breather now, or are you still pushing very hard?
I'm trying to drive 50 laps reasonably quick. I'm not trying to drive 20 extra fast.
Is the car still behaving nicely for you?
The car's still as good as it was when it started. You know, obviously the tyres aren't quite as good as they were, but no, everything's under control so far.
Okay, you're looking good. Good luck for the remainder. We'll keep an eye on you.
Thanks, mate.
Jimmy Richards there coming up to put a lap on one of the mobile Commodores, coming down to the left-hander at Coke.
It's Larry Perkins we're looking at, car number 11. Or in fact, could be the Brock car.
I think it is. No, there's Larry, you're right.
I saw an aerial and I thought for a moment it might have had a race cam in it. I didn't know whether Larry had passed him, but no, it's Larry Perkins that Jim's working away at the moment. And out breaks him by a car length, going into the hairpin. And as Mark pointed out earlier, Jim Richards is very, very good at this job. Smooth, calm and consistent, and leading comfortably.
He certainly is. Scaife just coming into view on the exit to the hairpin as Richards runs away with this one down to the left-hander at Coke. As he comes out of there, let's check them out on the Shell race score for you. Look at that. If you're a Nissan devotee, you'd be over the moon. Jim Richards leading, Mark Scaife in second. Dick Johnson doing a very good job running in third in the Shell Sierra. Win Percy and the Holden runs in fourth, rounding out the 5 Glen Seaton in the Peter Jackson Sierra. Back at Symmons in a sec or two. Back at Symmons Plains International Raceway, round number 2 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship continues. We have an interesting die starting to develop here. Dickie Johnson, who's been running third for most of the race in the Shell Sierra, finds Win Percy arriving on his tail very, very quickly indeed. Win in fourth, quite obviously, in the VN Holden Racing Team Commodore. And he really is starting to catch the Ford Sierra up.
We're coming up to 36 minutes of racing, and gee, Win's closed right up now on Johnson, who's probably starting to find himself running a little thin on rubber. The difficult thing with the Sierra is the tyres on the car are so narrow, and the car has so much horsepower, and there's a lot of real stop-and-go corners on this track which promote wheel spin on the exit, and the tyres do not like that as Dick locks up the rears and spins.
Yeah.
Locked up his rear brakes, heading into the hairpin, and backs around. He'll be cursing and swearing. Win Percy skates through to third place as Dick tries to do 100 mile an hour backwards.
Well, he's going to try and whip it around and then catch it again and get going.
Oh!
Well, if he had tyre problems before, I think he's...
That cooled him down.
That cooled him down in the biggest possible way. So you saw that Dick resumes without dropping another spot. So he goes back to fourth, Win Percy to third. And all the time, the Nissan GTRs of Jimmy Richards and Mark Scaife continue to run away from the field, which should make one very, very happy Freddie Gibson.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm fine. You look happy too.
I'll be happy when it's all over, Mike. It's been a pretty heavy weekend with Mark having an off yesterday in the car, but it's going well now and hope it keeps going that way.
Any problems at all with Mark's car, or is it running as well as it looks?
Yeah, it's running fine, Mike. No drama at all. Now, it's probably not as good as what Jim's car is today after the accident yesterday, but he's doing a good job. He's come through the field fairly well, and hopefully we get it home second and go 1-2 again if we can.
You get a bit of a break before Wanneroo. You won't know what to do with yourself.
Not really. We're going tyre testing, Mike. We always keep working, buddy.
All right, Freddie, good luck for the rest of the race. The boys are doing a good job for you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks very much.
Freddie Gibson, team manager. Gibson Motorsport, of course, taking care of the Nissan program of touring car racing. And gee, we've got problems. Win Percy.
Yeah, just took third place, and here he is slowing down on the back straight.
So Win Percy was running fourth, is coming to a stop on the back straight.
they had an alternator play up on the car at Sandown from about lap 6 or 7, and it dropped about 1,500 revs. She's dropped about all 7,000 revs this time, so a real problem there. So we've now got Glenn Seaton molesting Dick Johnson.
And Johnson's going for tyres.
Yep.
So Seaton to third, Johnson to the pits for some rubber. Percy stranded past the hairpin, and a real mixed bag. We've got Nissans clearing out from the pack.
Yep. Order is Richards over Scaife. Glenn Seaton now moving into third, and that would probably move Tony Longhurst up into fourth.
There you go, the BMs, they're doing it again.
Yep.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
I don't think Dick would be the man you'd want to talk to at the moment. But watch him light up the bags as he heads out of the pits.
Well, Dick would be pretty furious about that spin at the end of the straight. Now he's got it all to do.
The tyres are obviously a bit sad, and the rear brakes locked up. There's a shot of Win Percy wandering off in the background, so that's a real disappointment for the HRT team. They were placed very well at third position in that last manoeuvre.
They certainly put on a heck of a show this weekend. They qualified on the front row and ran very strongly in the opening laps. So the potential's there. It's just a matter of time and development. I should see the Commodores very strong come Bathurst time.
Mark Gibbs there in the GIO Insurance Commodore, being passed by Dick Johnson.
Yes, that's the Bob Forbes car, sponsored by Suttons and GIO. Doing a good job, Mark Gibbs, campaigning on the National Trail this year. Still in one of the earlier model year Commodores.
Looks like the car's limping a little bit at the moment. It's not up to the usual speed that we've come to know from Mark, who tries very, very hard. Just changing gears gently and creeping along the straight. There's no way Johnson would normally be that far clear of him, so they've got a problem.
He's a very aggressive racer, Mark, and it's full credit to Bob Forbes, who run the team too. He's got a youth policy. We've seen at Bathurst over the last couple of years, young guys like Rowan Onslow and other guys getting in there, and they're getting a run in Australia's major race.
And GIO backing the team again for this year.
Here's the Laughing Cavalier. Bondi in the Caltech CXT Sierra, running fifth now because of the jumble up in positions. He's been consistent here this weekend. Keeping in mind this man was the sleeper in last year's series. Boy, didn't he come good with a vengeance at Lakeside when he won the Lakeside round. And then, of course, went on to absolutely blitz them at Malala.
40 minutes of racing down, and Colin Bond in fifth position ahead of Peter Brock.
Bond, he hasn't had the best of weekends. There's Win Percy walking back to the pits with a bad story for the boys.
This will be a long walk back to the pits, but he is he's put on a good show today. Win Percy got the Holden up on the front row. Long walk back here at Symmons Plains to the pits, but he'll be back for the next round at Wanneroo. Well, the fortunes of the Shell Sierra team, they've been up and down today. John Bow looking strong, Dick Johnson off to a good start. And of course, Neil Lowe, the manager of the Dick Johnson Shell team, has really had his hands full in the pits. Just looking back down the leaderboard, Richards the leader over Scaife, Seaton, Longhurst, Bond, Brock, Perkins, Jones, Johnson and Bow running 9th and 10th.
And then Kevin Waldock 11th, and Mark Gibbs rounding out the field.
Jim Richards holding station in the position he's familiar with. There's John Bow in the pits as well. New tyres going on. And the Shell boys have been pretty busy there today. There's the damaged bodywork from that contact in the early laps. And there's Dick.
Getting by Larry Perkins and the number 11 Mobile Commodore.
They must have opted for a softer tyre, or maybe these warmer conditions caught the Shell team out. But it almost looks as though they were ready to make stops with both cars. But now Johnson coming back through the field. He's passed Larry Perkins, as you saw on Dunlop race cam, and he's about to grab Peter Brock. So the Shell car splits the two Mobile entries, and this is the battle for 6th, 7th and 8th. So the order: Jim Richards the leader from Mark Scaife. Glenn Seaton is in third, then Longhurst, Bond, and Dick Johnson passes Peter Brock to now move up into 5th. Brock is 6th, Perkins is 7th. behind Perkins. Alan Jones 9th, Kevin Warlock 10th, John Bowe coming back out of the pits and rejoining the fray. Then Mark Gibbs with Win Percy having retired, and there's the stricken car number 16 car off to the side of the road. We might try and establish what the problem was with the HRT car when Percy gets back, or even a chat with team engineer Wal Story.
Here's Johnson, right behind Colin Bond. Dick coming back through the field,
and
back
Bowe,
in the pits.
Back in, yeah.
John Bowe with a problem there. We were hoping to speak to Neil Lowe, but no sooner had Neil put the headset on, and then John Bowe arrived in the pit, so he was there to call the shots during that pit stop. So they've got a problem, and I notice that Jimmy Richards' teammate Mark Scaife is starting to get closer to the tail of the Richards car as the laps run out. You can expect a form finish here today as John Bowe of Devonport goes out to see if he can improve. At the moment he's running 11th. That is second last in the field, so not too much joy for John Bowe here today at Symmons Plains.
We're looking at a Sandown Park 1-2 finish again for the Nissan boys.
I don't think anyone could begrudge Jim the win, or Mark Scaife for that matter, a runner-up spot here today at Symmons Plains.
45 minutes down, so we've got about 5 minutes of racing to run, and this gap first to second is just over 1 second, and then a very, very big gap back to Glenn Seaton in third place. In fact, it's about 50-odd seconds. Tony Longhurst next, a further 2.5 odd seconds away, so it's not impossible that Tony might still sneak up onto the rostrum if he gives Glenn a bad enough time.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be a result for BMW?
So once again, the all-conquering Nissans have spread-eagled the field. Remembering, of course, Scaife started from the last position on the grid and absolutely blitzed his way through. We saw a demonstration of total domination at Sandown, and it's looking pretty much that way again today. Mark Scaife getting a lot of satisfaction out of the success the Nissans are having. He's the guy who's been out over the summer months grinding away on lonely circuits, doing hundreds and hundreds of development miles, and it's all paying off this season. These cars are very, very strong.
There's the man at the moment who runs in fourth, Tony Longhurst, 25. He's done a great job today, Tony, proving that when they do get to some of those tight racetracks, it's going to be very interesting racing.
Certainly will be. This is considered a power circuit where the BMWs wouldn't have a look in. It's pretty strong for a car that doesn't have a look in.
Heading down to Coke Corner, and Jimmy Richards about to put a lap on third place Glenn Seaton. Here he comes, up behind Seaton now. Seaton is closing on Mark Gibbs and the GIO Commodore. And I would think that the Nissan GTR's setting up for a form finish.
46 minutes of racing down. Look at this. Seaton, Richards, Scaife, Mark Gibbs all mixed up in it. Nissan race cam shows what's going on. Gee, look at the way the Nissan just gobbles up the Sierra. It's just staggering. There's definitely a problem with the Gibbs hold, and it's staggering around.
So that's first and second now, up on the inside of Glenn Seaton. And that, of course, puts Seaton down a lap. So Tony Longhurst running in fourth place. Still a little behind the Peter Jackson Sierra number 30. Checking the laps, and we're into the final few here at Symmons Plains.
47 minutes down now, Mike. The race will be either 50 minutes or 51 laps.
Now there's Seaton going through, running in third. And the next car you'll see on the exit to that this next turn will be Tony Longhurst, who is fourth and trying to pick up Seaton as they come down towards the sweeper. We've already pointed out the stranded Holden Racing Team VN Commodore parked out there on the edge of the circuit as Seaton goes through. That gap about the same. Going to need a superhuman effort from Tony Longhurst in maybe 2 laps to be able to pull back Glenn Seaton and take a spot on the rostrum here this afternoon. Certainly first and second places are reserved for the Nissan GTR duo of Jimmy Richards and Mark Scaife, who go beneath the Dunlop Bridge yet again.
Yeah, Glenn would be very happy with this result after the engine failure at Sandown to finish a sound 3rd place and get some runs on the board. That's what he would have been looking for, and hopefully he can hold it together till the end of the race.
To the hairpin. Seaton gets out of there smartly, and here are the 2 Nissan GTRs.
The awesome twosome. I don't know what the Sierra and Commodore boys are going to do about these cars, because their combination of supreme power and superior traction is pretty well unmatchable.
Coming up to 49 minutes of racing, so we're getting very close to checkered flag time.
We'll either have the checkered flag, these are timed races, 50-minute races. Depends how close they are to the 50-minute mark. This will either be the last corner, or they'll have one more lap to go after this. Checkered flag time, we believe. 1-2 at Symmons Plains for the Nissan GTR team as they take first and second in round number 2. A fantastic 1-2 as well, and I think all credit must go to Freddie Gibson, certainly to Mark Scaife today after the problems of yesterday, being able to come off the back of the field, dispense with the Sierras, and then finish on the tail of his team leader Jim Richards in the run to the flag. And also great to see Glenn Seaton picking up a major placing 3rd. That'll put him on the rostrum here today for the Peter Jackson team. Equally a fine performance from Tony Longhurst finishing in 4th, and Dick Johnson will show in the 5th spot. Let's check them out for you and confirm on our Shell race score. Jimmy Richards, congratulations. And also to Mark Scaife, 1-2 for Nissan. 3rd in the Peter Jackson Sierra, Glenn Seaton. 4th, Tony Longhurst in the Benson and Hedges BMW M3. Rounding out the 5-17, Dickie Johnson. And we'll be back for the presentation in just a moment.
Going to do about those Nissans. Once again, Jim Richards and Mark Scaife dominant at this 2nd round of the Shell Australia Touring Car Championship, but a tremendous 3rd place, the first non-Nissan. Glenn Seaton, well done, Seato. After the disappointment of Sandown, you must be very pleased.
Yeah, wrapped actually. The tyres worked fantastic. We had Bridgestones on today. The car performed really well, and thanks to the Peter Jackson team.
Congratulations, well done. Look forward to seeing you in Perth. Mark Scaife, a brilliant 2nd off the back of the grid. Boy, you really tore through the field and had some good moments.
Yeah, some good stuff, some great racing actually, and the guys were really good to race with. There's no biffing and barging, it was good.
Looked like you enjoyed a few laps there with Win Percy.
Yeah, we had a few laps there with Win around the back here, but yeah, as I said, the guys were great, and our guys did a super job to get the car ready. Thank you very much.
The car seemed to work pretty well in spite of the dramas yesterday?
Yeah, the car was fantastic, really. It was good as ever, Crompo, and our guys, as I said, they worked all night, and the tyres were fantastic. At the end of the race, we could do the same times as the start.
Well done, Mark. And keeping a perfect score, Jim Richards. Congratulations, Jim. A fabulous drive once again, and 2 out of 2, you can't do better than that.
No, it's good, but it's all down to the car and the preparation that goes behind it. We've got a great car to drive in the Nissan GTR. The Yokohamas kept sticking to the track all the time. It was good.
We keep hearing people say that it's easy, but I know it's not. It's not easy out there, is it, even at that speed?
No, it's not easy. I mean, sometimes most of the time the mental effort is a lot harder than the physical. You've got to keep your concentration up. They go very, very fast, and you've got to make sure that you keep a very, very consistent lapse time up.
Similar tracks, really, the first 2 rounds, Sandown and Symmons, but from here on in, tight and twisty stuff, the BMs will be looking good.
They will, as you know, as Tony was sort of keeping up with me towards the end, and that wasn't because I was letting him, that was because our car had done the job and the tyres were getting a bit second-hand, and so come the shorter tracks, they're going to be real, real good.
Terrific job, Jim. Tom Smith from Shell Australia to make the presentation.
Congratulations, Jim, on behalf of Shell. I'm sick of doing this every week, but it gives me great pleasure. Magnificent drive.
So Jim Richards, winner of round number 2 here at Symmons Plains. And Mike, what has that done to the points table?
Well, Neil, look for yourself. Jim Richards, the series leader on 40 to Mark Scaife on 30. Dickie Johnson runs 3rd on 18. Tony Longhurst on 14, and Glenn Seaton now 5th in the ATCC. And it still has a lot of work to do. We hope you've enjoyed round 2 of the Shell Series from Symmons Plains, Tasmania. Don't forget, our next telecast will be Sunday the 14th of April from Wanneroo. What a race that promises to be. And of course the AMSCAR Series to come. Look forward to your company next time we go racing.